Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to a really exciting Cockpit Conversations. I say exciting, it's actually the very first Cockpit Conversations. And I have the pleasure of being joined by Anat Shabby. Hi, Anat. Thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, Paul. Such a pleasure to be dragged into the 21st century with this StreamYard live everywhere.
Absolutely. Me and Anat were just talking before we kind of went live on this as to people kind of coming into the 21st century during lockdown, and I'm totally trying to embrace it, but let's see. Something will probably go wrong. It always does, doesn't it, when you go live? So we're gonna talk about Mental Health Awareness Week, and in particular about something that Anat is doing at the moment. So slightly different way of doing this. I'm going to hand over to Anat. Anat's going to take control of this session. So as we would say in the commercial cockpit, Anat, you have control.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. It does feel a bit cheeky. You know, you're hosting the show, but I'm going to take control now. So. Yeah. Thank you so much, Paul. Lovely as always to catch up with you. And, you know, I mean, it is Mental Health Awareness Week, and we are talking about mental health well-being. But I think it is really important to stress that it's not just about 1 week. I mean, well-being is a lifelong journey. We have a lot of ups and downs in our lives, and we just don't know what kind of challenges are going to be thrown our way. A little bit like flying, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you just sit on the end of the runway thinking, I know exactly how my day is going to plan out, and then it's never really like that, is it?
Yep, absolutely. So one of the things I'd love to talk to you about is well-being, and also well-being in the cockpit as well. So how do you kind of manage those ultra stressful situations that we as passengers never kind of spare a thought to? And yeah, I just wanted to also highlight to everyone watching that we have got a lovely free event on in June, where we hope to equip young people, young adults, 19 to 25, with different tools to help with their well-being. So we are calling it Pack for Well-being because, as I said, well-being is a lifelong journey. Well-being is obviously the destination, and it's all about what kind of tools do you have in your kit bag? What are you packing for your journey that can help you? So every day we're going to have a different tool, and people can mix and match, pick and mix whatever works for them, which sounds great. So Paul, I'm really excited to talk to you, because I think as someone who obviously used to fly a lot, you would have had plenty of stressful situations. And I just wanted to find out, I mean, you obviously have had a huge transition during this lockdown because you can't fly anymore.
No, I'm like the swan who's had his wings clipped.
Oh. So I've just been wondering how has it been in lockdown? What has been really challenging for you?
It's such a good question. I think, do you know, like a lot of people, I think the big challenge for me has been switching off. It's been finding that work-life balance. And it's kind of funny, you know, there's people probably listening to this thinking, you know, I'm the one who preaches work-life balance. And I'm probably one of the worst people in terms of actually finding it. It's interesting for me because when I was flying, everything is so regulated, everything's so strict. You know, you have to have 12 hours off between duties. You know, you can only work so many hours a day. Everything is just so structured and so rigid. So for me, when I was at home was downtime. You know, there was never any work to do at home. You can't take the cockpit home with you. It'd be quite funny trying to do it, I guess. So then I think it was really difficult for me then setting up my own business, working from home, creating those boundaries, having that kind of work, when is work and when is being at home. And it was particularly difficult for my children because, you know, they're used to me being at home and me being dad. And I wasn't, you know, I was at home, I was working. It was a completely different side of me. So yeah, that was a massive challenge.
It must be so confusing for them. Dad's home, but we can't play.
Yeah, it really is. They're just not used to that. They're just not used to seeing me work from home, and then obviously mixing that with the global pandemic that we're all at home. You know, they're homeschooling. My wife was at home teaching. It's hard. It's hard work.
Yeah, and you know what, Paul? Just listening to you, I'm thinking that for all those people listening as well, we've all kind of lost our structure. We had like a structure. We used to go out to work. We were in that framework, and then we used to come home. So we had that demarcation, and all of a sudden everything was blurred, and we had to impose this new structure. It was so much harder. And I'm just wondering, Paul, what helped you? What helped you in terms of your work-life balance, but also in terms of your well-being? What did you find useful?
So there's two things I did with that, really. I basically went back to the schedule. Like it was the one thing that was missing from my life was structure. So putting structure back into my life was quite a big thing, and almost trying to set boundaries for when I'm working and when I'm not working, and I still find that's quite difficult. I had this conversation with someone recently. When you're in the middle of lockdown, and there's nothing else to do. You have nothing else to do on a weekend but be at home in your house. As business owners, you just have that thing in your head, don't you, all the time of, well, I could be getting on with this right now. There's 100 emails I could be sending right now.
Yes.
So how do you distance yourself? So for me, it was really simple things like having a movie night with the kids. Oh. So we'd say, right, we're gonna watch a film together as a family, and put phones away, no technology, and it's just gonna be family time, kind of creating that structure. The other thing I did with my kids, which was hilarious, was we created well-being vouchers. So the kids had these little cards that basically was they could give it to me at any time during the day as long as my door wasn't closed. So as in I wasn't on a call, and I would drop whatever I was doing and give them 30 minutes attention to do anything, whatever they wanted to do. And more often than not, it was go outside and play on the trampoline. But it just, because I think this is the other thing, when we talk about well-being, we think about ourselves, and I know well-being is about us, and I everything I teach is about taking control yourself. But I would, when I had my schedule, I would schedule family time into it, but I realized really quickly that was like my time. It was still me dictating that. That wasn't like a family decision. And when I wanted time wasn't necessarily when the children wanted time. So kind of giving them back control. And there's something really liberating as well about dropping what you're doing, leaving it, and coming back and realizing actually the world hasn't just exploded while you were away.
I love that, Paul. I love the just the whole concept and giving your kids like permission. Here's a well-being voucher. Just come in, if the door isn't shut, just come in and tap me and say, right, Dad, I want some time. Love it. Love it. And, I mean, it is really difficult because I think for a lot of young adults, reaching out has been hard. If you think about it, you might be living with your parents. You're struggling with anxiety or depression. You might want to talk to somebody, but you haven't really got the privacy because your parents are always there. I know some charities, like Shout and Young Adults have had like a texting service, but I just love that idea of, imagine if they had these cards and they could just access somebody, for 30 minutes and have a chat.
Yeah, whenever they want it, on their terms rather than on somebody else's terms. I love it. And we've had an interesting comment in from Kelly. I'm just going to put it up on the screen. I won't be that annoying person who's going to read it out to everybody. But I totally agree with you, Kelly. It is getting harder to set those boundaries when working from home, and I think schools as well. I think schools are suffering with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It does take a lot of self-discipline to set those boundaries. I think especially, when you're trying to run a home as well. So you've got like the meals, you've got to prepare your kids, get them dressed. So I think, if you're a business owner with a family, I think it has been even more challenging. It really has to be like a partnership between you and your partner, assuming you have got one. Obviously, there's a lot of single families out there as well. So yeah, I think this pandemic has really kind of thrown a curveball at us all, and it's really challenging in terms of the way that we're coping with it.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. I mean, question for you, Anat, do you think this is going to change things, or do you think we're just going to go back to how we were before?
Yeah, do you know, it's a really great question, Paul, because I think as kind of human beings, we do have a tendency. I think it's probably a survival mechanism to just kind of whatever's happened to get on with the future and not perhaps pay too much attention. I think we've got a short memory span when it comes to kind of historical stuff that has happened to us that maybe has been painful, because it's survival. We go on and we carry on with our new life. So a part of me, you know, the optimist in me kind of says, well, of course, we've all learned a lesson. We all understand what's important to us in life, and we will just focus on that. But you know, you watch images of kind of people as restrictions have been lifted. We watch images of people kind of queuing for hours in shops.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, well, but you know what? Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, you know, how much we will have learned. I know certainly we're talking about technology and being dragged into the 21st century. I think we're a lot more adept, I think, in terms of the disruption that we've had, you know, technological disruption. That's been phenomenal, and it wouldn't have happened so quickly. But other things, I think, again, it depends on who you are and how much resilience you have to sustain it and not be kind of carry on with the new world and go back to your old ways. I think it is going to be challenging as a race to do that.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting you say that. We went into Bath recently, where we live, and it was so busy, but there was something really uncomfortable about it. Like walking down the high street and think there's so many people here. Like you just, something about it makes you just feel a bit odd, you know. It's I think it is going to take a bit to get used to it again.
Yes, I think some people would just be out there, they can't wait. I agree with you. For me, it's still a little bit alien, and I walk and I watch kind of people dining outside, and I'm like, I'm not quite there yet. But yeah. We
had an interesting conversation the other day about watching things on TV. You know, you watch something on Netflix and you see two people shake hands and you're like, should they be doing that? Like, it's just something in you now, isn't there? We've had a year of this. You see people touch and think, oh, I'm not sure you should be doing that.
Yeah. And I actually, Paul, talking of Netflix, I have to say, so one of the things that's helped my well-being has been just catching up with stuff that is, in my mind, good, but I missed out on growing up. So I've been watching a lot of, initially at the beginning, I was catching up on all my Harry Potter movies.
Brilliant.
Which has been great. And the other hit for me has been, don't laugh, has been Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
How funny.
It is so good. I tell you what, I mean, there's a lot of irony in it. The script is fantastic. They've got a few British people in it as well. And it's just very tight. And it's one of these things, it came out 20 years ago, but it's got a female as the main character, and she does a lot of martial arts. And it's actually quite ahead of its day, I think. And for me, it stood the test of time. So I've watched all of it now. I'm like, oh my God, this is
I would have never had you as a Buffy fan.
I am now.
Converted. Brilliant.
So Paul, talking about well-being, one of the things I wanted to ask you, because obviously as a pilot, you know, you have probably been in some really stressful situations. And as we were saying earlier, you know, you might not have anticipated them because obviously weather changes dramatically sometimes. And I just wondered if you can share with us one of those stressful situations that you've had in the cockpit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the ones I talk about all the time is it's people have probably heard this before, but my trip from Munich to Milan, or vice versa. I was based in Munich for like the first 6 months of my flying career. And one of the routes we used to do for Lufthansa at the time, I was working for British Midland, BMI Regional. We used to fly just across the Alps into Milan. So it was middle of the summer. It was a really, really lovely day. We were coming back from back from Milan, and halfway across the Alps, we got switched over to talk to Munich Air Traffic Control, and they told us that there was a huge thunderstorm that had developed kind of above the airport. Right. Which that time of year it kind of happens, you know, in and around the Alps. It's that kind of place where you have these horrendous thunderstorms for about an hour in the afternoon, and then it clears and everything's lovely. You know, it's part and parcel of the territory. So it wasn't unexpected for us, but on that day we hadn't seen anything in the forecast that it was going to happen. So we decided to hold. So you take up a holding pattern, which basically just delays your arrival into Munich. And the whole time we're in the holding pattern, we're looking at things like fuel. You know, we're working out how much fuel have we got, how long is it going to take to kind of get into Munich, looking at ways around, how can we get places, working out, you know, alternates. If we can't get into Munich, where can we go?
Yeah. And all the time, your passengers at the back are just thinking, well, we're just stuck here, nothing's going on. But really, it's a hive of activity in the cockpit in terms of what you're having to calculate and work out.
Yeah, absolutely. We of course always tell the passengers what's going on, but we just told them we were delayed. You know, we were being delayed going into Munich due to thunderstorms. You know, they could see it if they looked out the window. They could see it right above the airport. And halfway through all this, the tower actually got struck by lightning at the airport, which is crazy. I mean, when you have lightning above an airport, the whole operation like closes down. Like nothing happens on the ground. You know, you don't, like, the baggage loaders go inside. The fuel trucks are not allowed out because obviously if a fuel truck gets hit by lightning, the implications are massive. So everything stops on the ground. It's like a ghost town. It's the weirdest thing.
Wow.
So yeah, we worked out we had about an hour's worth of fuel to kind of mess around with, I guess, before we would need to divert. And our alternate airport was Nuremberg, which isn't that far from Munich. So we'd been kind of in the hold for about 50 minutes. It wasn't getting better, the weather. So we told Munich air traffic control that we needed to divert. We needed to go to Nuremberg. And not very long later, they replied to us and said, Nuremberg have closed.
No.
I know. All of the Lufthansa aircraft in the local area, they just know it. They know what the weather's like there. They know that, you know, they tell you it's going to be half an hour, and sometimes it can be 2, 3, 4 hours. So they just diverted. They all diverted straight away, and Nuremberg was full.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we did some kind of quick calculating to see where else we could go. Stuttgart was another option for us, but again, they were filling up. They were really reluctant to kind of start taking people. And we were told the only option for us was Berlin. That was the only airport that they could actually get us into as air traffic control.
Oh, goodness.
So we did some quick calculating and realised we didn't have enough fuel to get to Berlin.
Oh my goodness. And how long did you have? So you obviously had enough fuel, but how long did you have to stay hovering and in holding over Munich?
We probably had another hour. So
another hour.
The way they work fuel out in aviation is really good. Like, you've always got so many contingencies. You know, you have enough fuel to fly A to B. You then have enough fuel to fly from B to C for your diversion. And then there are certain contingencies you have to add on top of that as well. So we weren't close to falling out the sky. Yeah. But we were close.
I have to say, Paul, I'm glad we're not able to fly at the moment, because this story is probably going to put a lot of people off.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh my God. I'm stressed just listening to you.
Once you get to a certain amount of fuel, so once you get to, it depends. On that flight, it was about 40 minutes. So once we got to about 40 minutes of fuel left in our tanks, you have to declare an emergency for air traffic control, and then they have to let you land. So, you know, when I say we couldn't go to Nuremberg, we could have gone to Nuremberg and landed, but the implications on the ground would have been an absolute mess. You know, in an absolute emergency, they would have let us go there, but there would have been no parking stands, no gates, no way to get the passengers off. It would have, I mean, you can imagine it would have been absolute carnage. Yeah. So air traffic control in Munich decided they could see a gap on their radar, like a gap between the thunderstorms, and they asked us if we were willing to be vectored through this thunderstorm, basically, for them to play connect the dots and take us through, which they did. And it was crazy. So, I mean, this is where teamwork comes in, and teamwork is so incredibly important. So on that flight, I was the pilot flying, so I was actually flying the aeroplane, and the captain who I was with at the time was the pilot monitoring. So he was just like looking out the window, like constantly just scanning everything around us. And I was purely following air traffic control's instructions. So it was this layered up team approach. You know, you have to have both of you doing the job you're doing and know that person's doing the right job. And
luckily we landed. Sounds like there has to be a lot of trust between you.
There really does. Yeah. You have to just, like I had to just know that the captain was doing the right thing and was looking out for the thunderstorms. And he had to trust that I was flying the airplane the way air traffic control were telling us to go. Air traffic control can see this radar screen and they can see us on it and they can see all the thunderstorms.
Yeah.
So they can see, everything that's around us. They can see what's above us, below us, everything. We can only see a very small amount. I mean, you imagine looking out the front of an aeroplane.
Yeah.
You've only got windows across the front. You can't see what's behind you. It's really hard to see above or below. So it's amazing how narrow your vision actually is and how much you rely on instrumentation and technology.
Yeah. You're like, it sounds like you're in a tunnel from your description, because all you can see is a little bit forward and then that's it.
And it's all happening so fast, you're at 200 miles an hour.
I was going to say, you're going fast, but also you've got the added burden of, I don't know how many passengers on that flight.
Yeah, on that one, it was about 50. So it was a smallish aircraft. So it wasn't.
Yeah, but still, 50 lives behind you.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah. I mean, look at, well, I say luckily, we landed off of it. No incidents or anything. And the kind of the funniest thing about the whole situation for us was we'd had that whole situation and we landed, and then because there was still thunderstorms around the airport and there was no ground operations, we taxied off the runway and then we had to stop, and they made us sit there for an hour before we could do anything else because nothing was working on the ground. They couldn't get buses out to get the passengers off to take the passengers to the terminal. So, you can imagine how frustrated the passengers got that we've gone through this thunderstorm as an airplane, and then but it's amazing. I think people get really worried about thunderstorms and aeroplanes, and absolutely there's a lot of things that can happen, but an airplane is basically just a big Faraday's cage. You are protected whilst you're inside it. If an airplane gets struck by lightning, it just goes into the metal and back out the other side of it. It never affects passengers.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? So cool. I mean, absolutely incredible. I have to say, I was feeling stressed just listening to your story. There's so many things that, have to go on. We were talking about the trust. I mean, your obviously expertise in just going through all, obviously you're highly trained, but just relying on the instruments and then relying, on the pilot, relying on the air traffic controllers. Oh my goodness, what a stressful situation. So what happens after that? So everybody kind of disembarks, but presumably you have to get on the plane again. So how do you go from such a highly stressful situation that it rocked my world, and then get on a plane again? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, for us, it's part of the job. Like it's a really interesting concept, actually. It's something I talk about a lot with the well-being stuff, is that if you have something built into your routine every day that allows you to be prepared for anything to happen, then when anything happens, you are prepared, if that makes sense. So by being fit to fly every day, as I always say, being in tip-top shape, being able to just be in that moment and then being able to switch off from that moment afterwards is ultimately what gets you through it. We have emergency situations drilled into us every single day.
Right.
Before every single flight, we will talk through one emergency, and we'll always say, if this happens in this flight, this is how we'll deal with it. And we'll run through the drill together as pilots, so that when it does happen, or if it does happen, it's just never a surprise. It's just, you are so prepared for it that we talk about it becoming a non-event. Like it just is part of the job. It's just something that you have to deal with, and you just get on with it. And that's something I talk about a lot with well-being. We talk a lot about being reactive to well-being rather than being proactive.
Yes.
And this is why I think if you're reactive when it comes to well-being, then you're much more likely to be able to deal with the stressful situations, because your cup or your bottle, as I talk about, isn't full. If you live with stress piled up on top of you, then of course that's going to overflow and that's going to affect you. But if you can keep that at bay by practicing regular self-care routines and regularly giving time to yourself, then it's less likely to affect you when something big does happen.
Yeah. So you're talking about a lot of preparation and being proactive in the times, just, as akin to your training. You're being proactive and you're being trained in the times that are not stressful. So you're
Yeah.
taking all those kind of stressful decisions in an environment that isn't. And well-being at the moment, what we're saying is make sure that you do have, the right tools and you are practicing things so that when things go pear-shaped, you actually have some great tools at your disposal that you've already practiced and are familiar with.
Yeah, definitely. And making it routine. So like
Yeah.
making self-care non-negotiable in your day.
Yeah.
So that it just is, it just is part of your routine.
Yeah.
There's no point looking for time in your day when you need it, like it already should be there. It should be part of your routine. And it doesn't have to be complicated either. Like there's people who do the miracle morning and they'll spend hours on a morning journaling and doing yoga and working out and things like that. That's right for some people, but it doesn't have to be. Simple steps like just taking a lunch break.
Yeah.
It sounds obvious, doesn't it? But stepping away from your desk and having lunch, like make that part of your routine, make it non-negotiable. So
I love that. I love non-negotiables. Sounds amazing. I just wondered what's yours, Paul? What would be your non-negotiable well-being kind of go-to tools?
So I have two, interestingly. So my non-negotiables are that I always take lunch off. So I step away from my desk when I have lunch. Never eat lunch at my desk, and I don't have technology with me when I'm having lunch. I'll just sit in the dining room and usually put the radio on.
Yeah.
And then the other one for me is we sit down and have family dinner every evening together as a family. Sometimes things get in the way, and inevitably things do happen. But I don't schedule work beyond a certain time so that it's family time.
Yeah, love it. Really disciplined. My non-negotiable is exercise. So I do something every day, and I've got a swimming challenge coming up, and that's kind of really having a big goal for me. It really works.
Yeah, I love that.
Really inspired me to do something every day and something different to challenge different muscle groups. So that, for me, that was one of the things that was hard during lockdown, because a lot of the outdoor spaces or a lot of the things that I was doing, like swimming, even boxing with my trainer, just went out the window. And a lot of things had to go online. So that was a tough thing for me during lockdown. But I think a lot of it, Paul, is also knowing, well, what is it that's going to work for me? So that 1 hour of lunch and having proper lunch where you switch off from everything is really recharging for you. I think it's knowing, well, what is it that's going to work for me that can help.
Yeah, definitely. I talk about doing something that makes you happy.
Lovely.
And it can be anything.
Yeah.
It can literally be anything. Like it could be making a cup of tea.
Yeah.
If you love having a cup of tea, then just go make a cup of tea. Like do something you love,
Yeah. And just building on that, Paul, it's not just doing it, it's also being in that moment and enjoying it. So enjoy making that cup of tea and don't think about the million things you still have to do. I think
mindful engagement, like mindfully making a cup of tea, thinking about the whole process of the water and the tea bag and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because again, me and my wife were talking about this the other day, actually, when we were watching something, or I think we were actually listening to something on Radio 4, and they were talking about the perfect amount of time to make a cup of tea. And I'll probably get it wrong, but I think it's 4 minutes.
Sorry, Paul. Only in the UK can we have a conversation about things like this. Like, what's the perfect time to make a cup of tea?
Absolutely. So, I think it was 4 minutes.
Do share, please.
I think it was 4 minutes. And I was thinking, I have never spent 4 minutes making a cup of tea. And then
you would, because you're waiting for your tea bag to infuse and diffuse.
Of course, but when I actually think about it, and I probably leave the tea bag in for 30 seconds. You think, why do I only leave it in for 30 seconds? Because in my head, I don't think I've got time. In my head, I don't think I've got 4 minutes. Or there's something about, if I leave it in the kitchen and I can't go away and come back to it, I'm going to come back to it after 15 minutes, and then it's going to be ruined. there's just something really interesting about that, I think, as a concept as well. That why didn't I want to stand there for 4 minutes while that tea brewed?
Yeah, I love that, because I never do. I'm absolutely there with you. And if we're saying that you mindfully want to make a cup of tea, to me, the way I make it is not mindful at all, because I've kind of put the tea bag in, and then I think, right, it's got to get to the right color in the water before I can have it. So I'm going to go away and do something and come back. But really, I should be watching that. Is it diffusion or osmosis? I'm just trying to think what's going on.
I think is it infusion? Someone will know. Someone can drop it in the chat.
But I guess, I'm kind of trying to think, is it maybe osmosis? Because you've got high concentration. No, it's not. It's not osmosis. So it's infusion or diffusion. One of them. Help us, somebody.
Yeah, someone, if anybody knows.
Out of this tea bag conversation that we're having.
Who knew? When you sent me these questions yesterday, I was like, oh, let's talk about tea bags.
Funnily enough, just as a segue to tea bags, is, our event is called Pack for Wellbeing, because obviously what we're saying is we're going to equip you with 5 different tools. You just pick and mix the ones that you think will appeal to you. And obviously, as I was talking with Paul, we were talking about equipping yourselves now so that you have the tools in the future and you can use them. But because the event is called Pack for Wellbeing, one of my questions to you, Paul, has traveled so far and wide and so often, I just kind of wonder, well, what kind of packer are you? Are you one of these people that take everything with them? And for me, I used to pack tea bags when I went to places like the States, because you can never get the right tea bag. Or are you like, just a carry-on? Just, I'm
carry-on, always
a carry-on.
Yeah, it's funny when we.
Or did you?
Yeah, long haul. I would take a suitcase. It depends what we were doing. So sometimes if I was away for like a week, I would take a suitcase with me. But I had a flight bag that had all my flight stuff in it that I needed for work, and then had a bit at the back where I could pack like a spare uniform and something to kind of get changed into if we were doing something on a night. Interestingly, though, I used to have a thing in my bag called a night stop kit. So it was basically like you had to imagine that. You were going to fly, for example, when I was based in Exeter, if we were going to fly into Paris, you've got to imagine that the aircraft's going to break in Paris and you're going to be stuck there for the night.
Right.
So I always used to have like clean underwear, a spare shirt for my uniform for the next day, and then like deodorant, toothbrush, toothpaste.
Yeah.
And that stuff used to stay in my bag all the time. And then pilots get the exact same things going through security that passengers get. So they like have to test your deodorant and they test your toothpaste and all this stuff. So I had this I'd been going through this like regularly. It was constantly happening, and then we got stuck in Frankfurt one night, and I got into the hotel and was like, right, I'm just going to go brush my teeth, and my toothpaste was empty. So I'd had this brand new tube of toothpaste in my bag that had just been absolutely wasted over the course of about 3 months by security in an airport.
Oh my God.
When I actually needed to use it, it was empty.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? So if anybody watching wants to know how long does it take for a tube of toothpaste to run down after incessant testing by security staff, 3 months. Mind you, 3 months of probably, 2 tests a day or?
yeah, probably. Yeah, at least one a day.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy that they still do it with pilots. When you think about what a pilot does and what a pilot's in control of.
Yeah,
but yet pilots go through the exact same security as
I mean, in my mind, it's like, well, why don't you just put a tag on it? It's been checked and that's it. That would be simpler. But then, it's trust, isn't it? They just can't trust you, Paul.
No, I don't blame them.
Okay. I don't know if it's worth just kind of highlighting our event. Because I have to be totally honest, Paul. I mean, I work as a facilitator and coach. I'm a pharmacist. I've got a background in healthcare. And this event, we're putting it on for young adults, so 19 to 25, because this is a population that has really struggled the most with their mental health, well-being. And I think it's kind of important to say that those ages, in terms of our development as human beings, the things that inspire us the most in terms of our growth is new experiences, is socializing with other people. And so this is really, this period of, growth, 19 to 25, is a time when young adults really come into their own. You might be going to university for the first time, or you might have left university and you've got your first job ever. And, obviously I'm a lot older, so I'm just kind of thinking back, this was a great time in my life, and a great period of growth and learning a lot about myself. And I'm just thinking, this age group, instead of having this promised, growth, explosion growth, have actually had long periods of isolation. Some of them have been stuck on campus, but not able to see anyone, learning online. A lot of uncertainty about, the future. So how am I going to study? Or the job market has really changed. So what's going to happen? So there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression. And I'm thinking, Paul, that also as an adult, I've gone through a lot in my life. Mm-hmm. And I kind of know, first of all, what I need for my well-being. And secondly, I kind of have tools. I know, I have some tried and tested tools that I know work for me.
Yeah.
But for a lot of young adults, they haven't got that. And so this event is specifically for this demographic. And for me, as an older adult, I don't actually have a following of young adults. So what I'm really looking to from our listeners today is really to just spread the word. I mean, this is a free event, and we are a group of 5 professionals with tried and tested well-being tools that we'd like to just offer as a way of helping support this young adult population. And so please do spread the word about this event. It's called Pact for Wellbeing. You can just key in the hashtag, and that will take you to a registration link on many of our posts. So do please spread the word if you know people who have, this a following of young adults, or if you know young adults who might need it now, or they might need it in the future. I mean, this is, as Paul was saying, this is like a preventative toolkit. A great event over 5 evenings from the 21st of June. Every evening there'll be a different session from 6 to 7:30, where it's not a lecture, actually. It's an experience. We're talking a lot about mindfulness, Paul, and we've got some lovely kind of people from the world of art or music just sharing with us some great tools that will help mindfulness. We're kicking off with an self-awareness course. There's Lego Serious Play, of course, and there's also narration, so the stories that we tell ourselves. So very different tools, all very effective, all there for you to pick and choose. So please spread the word so that it does get to the people who need it. I think one of the challenges with mental health is that it's not visible. We don't know who's struggling. We don't know who needs it unless they reach out and ask for help. So I'm asking you for your help.
No, I love it. I think it's so needed right now. Like exactly like you said, Anat, we as adults know exactly what we need. And well, saying that, a lot of us don't know what we need. But we have some kind of experience or some kind of community or people that we can draw on to get help. And these young people just don't have the same thing. They're at a stage in their life now where they should be gaining experience, where they should be out there seeing the world, experiencing the world. And that's just been cut short for them at the moment. And I think what you're doing is amazing. And obviously I know what you do, and I know what some of your guests do. And it's going to be such a good week, because it's so unique, isn't it? It's not like anything else, when Anat talks about Lego Serious Play, still got it.
Oh my God, you still got
it. It just is different. It's such a different way of working. It's a different way of switching off, of just engaging that creative side of you. it's not another well-being lecture, is it? It's not somebody telling you to go off and do yoga or go off and do whatever. It's a real practical, fun way of switching off for half an hour.
Yeah, and thanks, Paul. And I think that is the essence of all these workshops. You're not going to be hearing about stuff. You're actually going to be doing it. So you are going to benefit in the moment. If you like it, you keep the tool and use it again and again and again. And if you don't, you just throw it away, just like packing your suitcase. You just pack the tool that is right for you for your well-being journey.
Brilliant. I love it. We do have a quick question from Hannah, which came up earlier on, which I'm sure we can both help. My kind of thoughts on that, Hannah, for you are just around creating those boundaries, but also for you, like knowing yourself, kind of when is work time and when's not work time, and not being too hard on yourself. So, you know, if you're going to say to yourself, I'm going to do 9 till 5 for work, and actually at 3 o'clock it's not working for you, kind of don't be too hard on yourself. Don't try and push through it. Just give the kids the time they need when they need it, and that should help you. But I'm with you. I'm going to be in exactly the same situation.
Yeah.
What do you think, Annette?
Thanks, Paul. I think it's a really tough one, actually, because for the kids, they're on holiday, so they're in a completely different mindset, aren't they? They're like, we're on holiday. You can't expect us to do anything else but, you know, have fun. And then obviously they want Hannah, they want you as their mum to join in. So I think, as Paul's saying, maybe have those fixed periods that are totally devoted to them. And the other thing I'd say is probably tap into your network, because you're going to have a lot of other mums in a similar situation. So maybe there is a kind of activity that they can do with other kids online. Maybe one parent can be like in charge of that activity, and that frees up all the other parents. So maybe kind of have a teamwork approach, turn to other people for help. That would be my tip.
Brilliant. I hope that helped, Hannah. We can obviously pick things up in the comments later on if you have any more questions. Cool. Well, Annette, thank you so much for today, for our first cockpit conversation.
I am honoured to be your first guest, and it's always a pleasure talking to you, Paul. So thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Just give everyone one last reminder how they can get involved in.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So the best way, we've got a hashtag on all our posts. So it's hashtag pack and the number 4 well-being. That's a brilliant way to see what's going on and to register. It's one link for all of the events, and as I say, you can pick and mix whichever works for you. And the other way is just look for my name, Annette Shabby, either on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and you'll find me. So do spread the word or join us if this appeals to you and you're in the right age group.
Amazing. And Annette's tagged into these posts. So if you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, Annette's name will be somewhere up there. Yeah, you can click on her name and follow her. Thank you so much again, Annette. Have a fantastic week.
You too. Take care, everyone. Take care, Paul.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.